welcome again to the VUC session for February 18th. It's 6 o'clock here in Bordeaux. It's 7 o'clock where our guest is, I think. Eugene, is that correct?
7.
7 o'clock, and we are going to talk about my upright bass. You see how beautiful it is? Now, we're going to talk about Eugene's product. Eugene, you're a CEO of, now we come to the pronunciation, I would say Transparate or Transparate?
And I would say Transparate.
So Transparate is good. I got 1 point on that. And your last name, let me take a guess and then you correct me, okay? Is
okay.
it Nedbaito?
It is Nedbailo.
Oh, it's an L. I'm sorry, I crossed the L. Nedbailo. Okay, so Eugene Nedbailo, you are the CEO of Transparate, and I would like to hear a little bit about the company, as everyone would, and then you've got a presentation on your platform. So let's hear about the origins first a little bit, and then go on from there. And I'm going to excuse myself so that people can see just you.
Okay, how many minutes do I have for that? Okay, good. So Transparate is, we started it about 3 years ago, and it came up as a big idea of what if. So our what if was, what if all voice traders will be in direct connection with each other and be able to monitor rate decreases and increases on the market and contact each other directly for better terms for traffic negotiations, and there will be no middleman. I mean, nothing like exchange between or nothing like third party. Well, Transparate itself is a third party, but we do our best to meet sellers and buyers directly. That's why we call the project Transparate. It's about transparency in rates, so all voice traders feel another better way of making business and to make it faster, easier, and with no limitations. The product itself is online, everything is online, and when it will come a time, I will share my screen with you to show what's there, what's inside. And meanwhile, that's it.
Okay, the switching process is kind of amusing. Actually, the full screen will be very useful when you start that presentation. Let's take a quick look first, though, at exactly who the target audience is for this service. And I don't know how much you're going to get into the other two tabs on the site. The other two, these are three separate companies when you go to Transparate, or how does that work? But first of all, who is the target market here?
Okay, target market is, we call them carrier account managers, managers at telecom companies who are responsible for selling, buying voice minutes. So these guys are on daily basis search for new customers in order to sell or buy voice minutes and negotiate better terms. Okay.
And actually this question could come up now. Simon mentioned it. Whether you carry media at all, or are you just kind of a dating agency? And I take that word from something that you actually said.
Right. Sort of dating agency. People confuse us with an exchange because it's the closest model. But let's take an exchange as an example. And standard exchange usually is anonymous trading, when seller does not know who is the buyer. And in our case, it's the other way around. Everyone is in direct contact with other people, but not just direct contact. We made it based on rate and target comparison. So Transparate itself is a big pool of rates and targets, and we constantly compare these rates and targets against each other in order to generate leads. So positive matches when seller can contact buyer for a specific destination to buy it or sell it.
Okay, I was just asking Simon if he can nod his head. I can see him. If you would like to ask a question before we even get started, nod your head and say, let's bring him in, because this is interactive and that's the whole point. So you have to unmute yourself, Simon. He shaved for this, so let's get him in here. The unmute is up on the top. There's a red microphone. Click that. I think you might have something to contribute.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
Yes, I'm fascinated. It may be covered in your in your presentation, but I'm fascinated to understand how the model works if you're adopting the dating agency model in terms of measuring quality and ensuring that buyers are getting what sellers are supposedly offering.
Mm-hmm. Okay, to answer that question, let me share my screen to answer the question Randy asked before regarding free companies on the site. So I'm sharing my screen in a second. Okay, so when you go to Transparate and what you see on the main page is a way either you're a guest or you're a member. If you're a member, you log in. And you see one page interface with something on the top like Transparate, Vertector, and Digitalk. And the interface for actually looking at matches between your rates and targets and other members. Just a few things to show how members are using that might answer some other questions. So when I go to new matches to see the most recent comparison results between my rates and targets, or vice versa, my targets and rates of other members. And when I'm interested in something, I press negotiate in order to send out a message, something like, for that destination from that company, I'm specifically interested in that. So we start dialogue and start sending deals out. And when we got a reply incoming, like in this case, I can either accept it or I can decline it. If I press accept, the deal is considered as done. And in done deal section, I see direct contact info of the other party, like Skype, phone number, or message. So you can immediately contact that person for negotiation. And Simon, you asked about quality. So Transparate is Transparate itself is mostly for pre-sales. So we do not go into that technical things like ASR, ACD. We do not transmit media. And for that, we're looking for third parties. For example, Digitalk is a routing platform hosted, and we invited them to join our project in order to provide our members with routing option. Vertector is an escrow service for telecom carriers, and when our members ask, okay, how can we protect our deals, we say Vertector is a good option. And altogether, it's like Transparate for pre-sales, Vertector for protecting payments, and Digitalk is a routing option. So it looks like exchange, but not anonymous, since everyone is in direct access with each other. Okay, I'm stop sharing my screen in order to get back to you. Sorry.
Okay, so each time I have to unmute and so on. Shall we? Is that it for the presentation, or are you going to want to go back to that? Because if you have other slides, you have slides or anything else you want to show?
No, I just wanted to keep it directly to the product. I mean, every time I've got a question regarding a specific thing, I might get back to the site and show it.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. It's hard to tell who to bring in, so I'm going to bring everybody in and see if they have questions. They are welcome to unmute their audio, James and Dan. Give you a little time to do that.
Yeah, hello, Eugene. Can you hear me?
Yes, yep. James. Hello.
Yeah. So you're on, just for clarification, I think Simon asked it, you're not formally monitoring quality or performance in any way. You're just doing the dealing and holding cash in escrow. Is that correct?
Not exactly. So let's make it like part 1, 2, 3. Part 1 is to negotiate rates, selling or buying rates. That is about Transparate. And when deal is agreed, it might be either protected via escrow, Vertector as payment method, or it can be routed via Digitalk as routing platform. But these are options. Our first job is to actually meet sellers and buyers based on rate comparison. So that's what we do as first service.
Let's keep the dating analogy for a second. Okay, so because everybody can understand the meeting part. Okay, so you're looking for somebody with brown hair, or you're looking for somebody with routes to such and such a place, right?
Or in my case, just somebody with hair.
with hair. And okay, so we've got that set up. bring in the other actor that you just mentioned. What is their? It's a cloud platform of some kind. How does that relate to what you're doing? This is something that I was having a little trouble myself understanding. I should.
Digitalk.
Yes, Digitalk.
Okay, Digitalk itself is a company who does solutions for business and consumer market, and their latest product is Digitalk Cloud. So they took their wholesale billing and routing switching platform on the cloud to make it more accessible for other members to start business. I mean, it's a good way to start business if you don't want to invest much money into servers, software, and everything, but have traffic opportunities to do. And they provide their cloud solution to get started immediately.
Okay, so we've got that going, but I'm still not completely picturing this.
Okay.
And you know, I've got a trial account, and I went through it and looked at how the software works, and as far as I can tell, the software works very nicely. And I've never seen anything like it, but it's also because I'm not in that part of the business as well. So that's the problem for me.
Can I ask you a question, Randy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So do I understand correctly that you're not involved in the quality control process? Is that right, or have I misunderstood?
Yes, we're not involved in the quality control process because before it comes to quality control process, sales managers are negotiating route terms. What will be the price? How much traffic do you have? What capacity you have? Before we get started, they need to negotiate these things in order to get, well, to make deals happen, right? And Transparate is
so like another. I'm sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Yes, and Transparate is to make that process faster because people say, okay, we might. It works like imagine you've got Skype, but that Skype is designed. All your contacts are your voice partners. And you can very quickly negotiate terms because we use filters like ASR, ACD, some technical things, so people can negotiate things specifically regarding a specific route. And in general, it saves time and allows your business development go much faster than before.
But it seems like that a market, to have a marketplace, you would need to have. You need to have a quality control construct of some sort. I mean, even like in old markets like grain, wheat, corn, commodity markets. If something's going to be a commodity, you have to have a quality control process. Like I know people who are who produce grain and wheat and so on, and when they get their commodity grain picked up, there's a check, and if you have too much chaff in your grain, you're going to get docked because the person who is buying that is going to be burdened with that problem, or they have to own the problem and reprocess it to make it a better product, which has a cost associated with it. So the only reason that the commodities markets can exist is because there are structures in place to make sure that a grain of corn is in fact the same. In other words, a low quality route is less valuable than a high quality route. So how do you guys deal with that?
Well, the idea was actually to take one part out of traditional exchange. A traditional exchange usually controls everything. I mean, payments, routes, traffic, quality parameters. But when you do everything at the same time and for everyone, very often it doesn't work well as a whole solution. So we decided to take one part away, just that pre-sales part, and add third parties. For example, Digitalk is an independent party, neutral, not involved into anything like Transparate or Vertector, right? And Vertector is strictly about making people get paid via escrow, right? And by uniting these third parties, that model sounds much more promising because people are not happy with exchanges in general because they don't want to be someone stepped into their margin and eating their profit. And well, if I answered your question.
You kind of faded out. Was that my connection?
No, that was a little error on my part. I was verifying something and I hit the fader. I'm sorry.
I see. So
Repeat just the last sentence, Eugene. I'm sorry. I have a few problems here, and as a result, we're not operating as usual. As you saw, usually I have a card that comes up and says that the audio is coming from ZipDX, and now I have to do this manually like the old days. Anyway, can you repeat just the very last part?
Yeah, sure. So we don't want to control the technical parameters because we are looking for another party who could do it very, very well. Like in our case, that is Digitalk. They do these kind of technical things. I mean, when someone wants to route calls via Digitalk, they take care of all these parameters you mentioned. And we don't plan to be everything by ourselves. So otherwise, we will go into that exchange model, and that's not our way.
So is this Digitalk component, are they guaranteeing quality, or are they functioning more like a rating agency, and then that rating of the route quality cascades forward into the marketplace?
Well, they do not guarantee it. They provide a tool in order to make the call happen. So session border controller to organize the call, analyze statistic of it, analyze rate sheets, upload, download, so things more technical, I would say. So to put it very, very on surface, Transparate is about sales, Vertecta is about payments, Digitalk is about making call happen.
Mm-hmm.
Carl, if I may interrupt your questioning for a second, recognizing the senator from Bordeaux, France. Eugene, the question comes to mind right away, which is this must function to some extent like what eBay or some kind of an exchange, because in other words, how do you know that someone isn't going to look at this and then go negotiate? Well, let's talk real estate for a second. So if somebody visits you, you go visit a place that you want to buy or rent, and then you could go try to negotiate with the owner. What exactly prevents that kind of thing, where they see the rates, they do the discovery at your expense, basically, and then they talk directly? Is there some, what prevents that from happening? Agreement, obviously.
Actually, we don't want to prevent that, because people say, well, I found a partner, I no longer need you after that, right?
Right.
And we say, okay, and tomorrow we've got new rates and targets. You are getting back to Transparate, upload, make new comparison list and new people. And actually, you need it on a daily basis. That's why people are coming back, and they're not just taking things away and saying thank you and goodbye.
Okay, I see. Again, because I don't do this, I don't know the day-to-day realities. And what you're saying is that these things change all the time, so it would behoove people to be a part of that system in order to see all these changes and be aware of them.
Right. Because we take your rate, for example, for a specific destination and keep it linked with all other rates and targets. And in case we've got match, we immediately inform you, look, you've got a match with that company, check it. So,
are there alerts by email or IM or something, by the way, for these? I mean, are you putting markers on things that people get an alert if there's a change, or is there any kind of alarms for the subscriber?
Right. There are alarms. When you've got an incoming deal, you're getting that as an email. So you've got a deal from a specific company for that destination. Please log in to check. And for new matches, we don't have alarms. People, as a morning comes, cup of coffee and what's new, they go to Transparate to say, okay, there are some new matches. Okay, let me check that. And that's why that's the way they do it. Sorry.
So in real life, people might find a really, really inexpensive price, go to it, and then for some reason the quality's not there. I mean, this must happen, and then they have to come back and find something else. Would that be something that has happened?
Yes, that could be. Sometimes, our managers use the term of building a business case. You have companies you currently work with. You've got companies you currently not work with, but might, based on rate comparison. So what you do, you are sending out several deals to the same company in order to check if there are enough destinations to trade. Is the business case itself, it's worth it? And if it is, you go on. If it's not, you just getting back on the morning and to see what's new and do it again and again and again.
Again, speed dating. So you're at the table, you talk for a while, and then you see that it's not working out. You move to the next table. Okay. Anybody else have? Who else has questions? Anyone at all in the room is better than me for this, but we'll drag it out of Eugene. So, anybody want to? I'm looking over at IRC. I don't see anything, but any of you here in the Hangout questions on how all this operates?
Eugene, it's Simon.
Hello, Simon. Yep.
Hi. I understand your product. I understand Vertecto, and I understand Digitalk. You've described a scenario where a customer may use all three. To what extent do they play nicely together?
I would answer your question that way. So we've got integration steps. So altogether they place as an options, not as a must. Let me get back to that standard exchange model. When you go to a standard exchange, I don't want to give names, right? But you know, well, all big names of standard exchange. You have to do everything through one source. But in our case, we provide people options. So you may find deal at Transparate. If you want, you may protect it at Vertecto. If you want, you may route it through Digitalk, but not a must. You can do it by your own. But for example, how altogether play well, as example with Vertecto, I can say that we've got a special room for Vertecto members at Vertecto site, and every time I find a deal at Transparate, it automatically creates an invitation at Vertecto dashboard. So these two accounts are linked in order to save time. And the same integration steps we are planning and doing with Digitalk right now.
So as I understand it, if somebody wanted the full exchange experience, they could get it through you by combining the three products. But if they wanted to replace any element with a third party, they could.
Right. Yes, not right now. We are going into that direction. I think in 2, 3, or 4 months, we may be able to present something like the first transparent exchange where things are not hidden, but you can do it that way. So as an option, not as a must.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Anybody else? James is popping in and out here. He looked like he turned his video off or something. James, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
You or Dan have a question?
Yeah. Is it just narrowband services you're brokering, or are you brokering any wideband services as well?
I think you're asking about if it is only about voice products, but data services as well.
Okay, data's there, but in particular, both Simon and I have got a bit of a passing interest in wideband codecs. So the ability to pass traffic at higher quality, so something better than 8 kilohertz sample rate.
Okay. No, James, I don't think I understand that specific, but I may answer a question about voice and data. So sometimes people say, look, you did that good product for voice trading, but can you do the same for data trading so people can buy and sell bandwidth? Well, that's another good idea we may come up with a bit later, but data product is completely different than voice. And meanwhile, we decided to focus on voice only.
Okay. All right. Mobile data would be quite interesting. I'd be quite interested in buying the odd 100 gigabytes worth of bandwidth in Moldova, for example.
Okay. Well, most recent example, for example, Cogent Communications. We decided a project with them recently so they can promote their data products to Transparate members. And to be specific to your question, you can buy that bandwidth from Cogent via Transparate because Cogent recently launched in Moldova their backbone. So.
Okay, and clearly we've been talking about Moldova, but the interest is right the way across, well, globally, not just Moldova, clearly.
Right. Well, that I call it Transparate for data, right? It's a different project. I think it will be in the nearest future. Well, at least not this year.
Yeah. Yeah, the one point I'd like to make is about these services is that all services are not equal. So you have different contention rates, for example, on data, different speeds. In the voice world, you have different codec presentations. So what do you do to differentiate between the different product types? Because 1 minute of voice from one provider is not equal necessarily to 1 minute of voice from the next.
Well, at Transparate, we try not to say who is good and who is bad, who is trusted, who is not. So people keep asking us, can you tell us who is the most trusted provider of voice? And we say, no, we cannot. We don't know that. We're neutral, but we are developing tools so members can rate each other with a simple trust and trust marks, so we can gather that information and make it available for other members to see how many times that carrier was trusted or untrusted, and to know it in advance before approaching.
Now it's making sense.
Okay, would Simon?
I think that's that.
To basically copy the paradigm that others have implemented, like eBay, maybe most notably, where you're totally within your rights to provide bad service, but it will catch up to you by way of community feedback. So I think that's clever and interesting.
Okay, looks like we're finished.
Okay, back here. Oh no, I seem to be having some very bad difficulties here. Can you guys hear me in the Hangout now directly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. For the moment, I didn't have any. There we go. I've got that. Oh, isn't that wonderful? That portrait, me in 1929, that was taken. Okay, guys, we're back. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I'm still not here in video, but you don't need me. So,
Did my feedback make it into the Hangout?
yeah, but I don't know, because I was frantically looking around and I was hearing ZipDX. Without going into detail, I've been having some problems with my ISP and the router rebooting and stuff. So I'm back. I don't know what part did and didn't get into the Hangout, but everything that got onto ZipDX has been recorded there, of course. And now the big question is, where were we? Could somebody who's only on ZipDX, Simon, you're on ZipDX. Could you? Where did things cut off? Can we try to get back to where we were? Anybody?
Yeah, James was talking about handling HD and then talking about the data. Eugene was talking about rating buyers and sellers and how they have a positive, negative experience. I then made a comment which I'm not sure if it got out there, talking about my experience of different kinds of exchanges and how I think buyers being able to rate sellers is a really, really good idea. Because otherwise you fall into one of two camps, neither of which is ideal. And then is Michael made a similar comment about the rating features being very good.
Okay, so I'm not sure where that leaves us. Sorry about that. These things happen from time to time. I think it's because we went for the lowest per minute cost.
But I think probably
that's what happens.
I think Eugene hasn't responded to any of those comments. It'd be interesting to get your feedback, on our comments on what you said, because it sounded from what you said like it was very much buyers saying whether a seller is good or bad. Is there more to it than that? Are they giving them a score out of 10, or are they commenting on their experience? It was interesting you compared it to eBay before, and the rating there is complicated, really.
Well, or
yeah. Also, what would our score be if they rated us?
Okay. Well, rating and feedback at Transparate, I call it the most sensitive topic, because to make it right, we need to take into attention how carriers are talking with each other. You can be good at one destination and bad at another. Are you in that case good carrier or bad? That's why we keep it specifically not about a carrier, but about specific destinations with carriers are selling or buying. Another thing is we had an extended version of feedback and short one. Extended is when can you say, okay, my experience was neutral, bad, or good for these parameters like payments, communication, disputes, etc. But people tend to say everything was neutral, so no one wants to say everything was bad or good. And after that, we decided to move to something more direct. So you either trust that carrier in general or not. And that trust-untrust combination is what we're currently developing for our members to present in a month or so as a ready product.
In other words, trust is sort of a proxy for I trust that this carrier is going to not give me a route that they can't provide in some halfway decent way.
Right, because trust can be a combination of different things, because you might have bad experience right now, but last 10 years everything was good. So you take that into consideration by saying, well,
yeah, I think that's a good idea. And and the other thing where you were talking about was specific to what, a route or a specific connection, and like how do you how tightly do you draw the boundaries around that? If you're describing a session, let's say I call a specific number, can that call be generalized to the same city or the same routing area, or to what degree, or is it like to the whole country? Like how would you compartmentalize as far as comparing? How would someone like me or an end user be able to say they do or they don't do, or they didn't have a good experience with a call, and how can someone else generalize from that?
Well, usually carriers have same kind of problems among each other. So if a company they are selling or buying from, FAS is a problem of voice industry when fails calls in your traffic that leads to low quality traffic, and people try to avoid this FAS traffic as in any possible ways. And if companies, someone knows exactly that company does that FAS traffic, they say, okay, for 100%, I do not trust them because they do that. And again, they don't go into specifics for a destination matter. If a company does FAS, it's not trusted in the beginning.
I see.
Carl hits an interesting point there, actually, Eugene, which is the other aspect of a marketplace in terms of knowing what you're buying is defining what you're buying. Now, any given country is obviously represented by a country code, but it may have 10 different mobile networks. Mm-hmm. So a seller could be selling mobile to the whole country, or they could be selling specific networks. Different carriers may define different networks by different codes. Do you get involved in that definition by publishing a common code set, or do you leave it to the buyer and seller to sort out the details between themselves?
Well, when we start that negotiation process between a seller and buyer, we've got a communication window where they can specify codes by selecting codes from our database to make sure, okay, these codes I mention when I want to buy or sell that destination. Plus another options like ASR, ACD, CLI or non-CLI route, well, to make the deal more clear, because it's not clear until you clarify these important things for pre-sales.
Okay. Yeah,
Randy,
that's great. Thank you.
Looks like I sound too serious. Thank you for making it more lighter. Yeah.
This is what we do. This is the way we operate. So the idea was so that you could see the new interface. This is Google Glass. Anyway, seriously, we need some more questions from people.
I've got another question.
Great.
Sorry, of course.
I don't have your sound card audio
my
either.
enter queued up.
Sorry.
So that's all right. So here's the question. Let's say, I mean, how big does a player have to be before they can, insert routes into your marketplace? In other words, let's say that I'm, a company in Chicago, and I've got 4 PRI spans, and we do have excess capacity some of the time. We also have a really fantastic, link to, fiber optic link to an exchange or to a meet-me room or something, like really good connectivity, so we could, provide, basically sell off this excess capacity. Is that, is that something that a small player could do to recover some of their fixed cost, or how big do you have to be to jump into this game?
Well, you don't have to be big. Because at Transparate we've got very small niche carriers, for example, who are selling only one destination very often in their own country. And we've got big names as well, like Rom Telecom, Telecom Slovakia, Orange Russia. But usually big guys don't like what we do, because our idea is to make the market transparent. And they play their own game, and very often they don't want to be that transparent. At the same time, we do understand what is business transparency. I mean, we don't want to destroy deals between companies to make them visible to everyone. That's not our model. Once a deal is found, we try to protect it from others to take it out, so people do not take advantage of if a seller and buyer found each other. We try to protect them and not to go public with that by hiding the deal out of Transparate.
I see.
Eugene, are there
Eugene.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Simon.
Eugene, yeah, Simon again. Are Transparate related to Vertecto, or are you just partners?
We are partners. We share a lot of same clients, because a carrier can use Transparate for pre-sales and Vertecto for payments. And since we've got a lot of clients shared, we decided to make a joint project to generate more leads at Transparate that can be protected at Vertecto later, and to give the Retector members an opportunity to see each other in that transparent way.
Okay, and presumably the same is true with Digitalk, so the three of you are separate companies but partnering with each other.
That's right, that's right.
Okay, interesting.
And what I was going to ask is whether there are like whole big areas, because it's 20 minutes to the hour, whether there are whole big areas that we've missed. Is there anything that we need to get to as far as like a major section of anything that hasn't been covered, Eugene? You'd like to show?
About the product or about the way members communicate, if you specify the area?
Any of it, anything that you'd like to put out there. I mean, we are at your disposition. We are a wrapped audience, as you can tell. Okay. And, you know, anything you would like to put out there. But I'm just wondering whether we've covered everything. I have to apologize because this is one of the times when I'm really ill-prepared. That's why I asked for greater minds than my own, like Simon and James and Andy, so that they would, and Carl, so that they would ask questions. We tried to get Alex, by the way. Carl, did you get any response from Alex?
Oh, no, I haven't, but I shot him an email an hour ago.
You might even know Alex Balashov, Eugene. I don't know. He's somebody who's fairly visible. But anyway, let's get back to whether there's anything that you feel. I mean, this is your moment. So anything that we haven't touched on at all that we should be knowing about?
Okay. Well, I don't want to get back to the product itself because screen sharing doesn't show everything. We try to keep everything on one page, but details will be not visible enough so for our people to understand. Let me share some other things I would like to share. Right now, we're developing mobile application for our service in order to take out that deal center at Transparate and give you an option from your mobile phone to either accept or decline incoming deals and get in touch with people faster, not to be linked necessarily to your computer to handle it. Another thing is to, based on same mobile application, to be able to meet people. For example, every month there are telecom events when people come to talk to each other, and half of schedule is usually filled with pre-agreed meetings. But very often a lot of people are just browsing around looking who's there. And our idea is based on your Transparate account, you can see who is there right now, and based on rate comparison, where and how can I talk to that person. So we're moving closer to something more interactive and dynamic, not just linked necessarily to your working account every morning at your job.
You know, one thing I can say about this, and this was at a consumer level, is that early on there were a couple of trunk providers who had I was going to say macro, but I don't know, I don't even remember what they were, but they were calls where you could have several trunk providers and you could call them. I'm trying to remember even the mechanism. It was through Asterisk. You could call them and ask them what the rate was to a particular number. Simon, help me out here. You probably remember this, or maybe James does. But was it Teleax or OnSIP? One of the early Junction or somebody had a macro. No, it doesn't mean anything. Well, in other words, in Asterisk, you would launch a macro. You'd launch a function. It would call. It would interrogate through. I don't even remember what mechanism. Probably some kind of web service call, SOAP or something. It would call and ask for pricing. So what you would do is you'd make a function that would call the three most likely SIP trunks, and that would tell you the cost call, and that would be your little homemade LCR. Obviously, we've come a ways from that. And again, I'm talking about the single user, simple, Soho asterisk operation. But it occurs to me that there's a similar philosophy here, in that you are looking for the optimal mixture of cost, really. You're looking for the optimum cost for you on a particular route. And that's what that did. It did it in real time. In other words, the answer came back in less than a second, so then your asterisk would call through that trunk. Today, you're talking about making deals. It's a little bit different, but the object is still the same, which is to pay the least for minutes. So the question to the group is, in something like 2007, I think I was at an Astrocon, where someone had a slide showing that gas prices were, they showed the gas price, and then they showed the price per minute, and the price per minute was like zero. In other words, the idea was that minute cost is going to be zero someday, or at least pretty much zero. Being as you keep looking for the cheaper price, obviously that drives that even further in that direction. Is per minute, I mean, how important is that? Who is it that important to? You're going to tell me people who are terminating, 20 million minutes. But comments on this movement, this idea of looking for the price, and that the price is all in this. I'll call on our guest Eugene first, but anybody's welcome to comment on that.
Well, the only thing I can say, there is a tendency, of course, of a price going down because there are many people, many companies stepping into that market, and there are many direct terminators in each country making the rate go down, and no one can stop that process, I think. I don't know when it will be 0 per minute, but, well, it's a real future.
We're not that far now, really, except... Well, let me give you a quick example, then we'll go to James. In our deal now on my ISP, which cut me off a minute ago, I guess, but I don't know about that. I don't know what the cause of that was. Point is, we have for a fixed monthly rate, we're not a business, but the point is we have so-called unlimited on to 110 destinations, I believe, including all mobiles in this country. And that's on our fixed line, which is obviously SIP, even though they don't talk about SIP. And the same company offers a mobile, which is 20 euros a month. It's actually 16 euros a month for us if we're already with them. Unlimited mobile to 40 foreign destinations, fixed and mobile, unlimited. So in what I'm doing for my wife and myself, and our small business, but don't tell the ISP, the minute cost is 0, really. I mean, it's 0. It's whatever minutes we use to... Yeah, no, Simon, we'll get to you, Simon. The minute cost is 0 if you divide our monthly charges, which are getting to a certain point, by the number of minutes, of course. But, that includes other services, too. James, you had a thing you wanted to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, for us now, the most critical factor in choice of carriers is not the cost, it is the quality. And so even though there is cost involved in the equation, by far the most important factor that determines which way we go is the quality. So for us, any kind of brokering service that doesn't have an easily measurable value for quality is of limited use, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's true. So I see everybody's on ZipTX, forcing me to do the switching. Simon, you're shaking your head. Go ahead with what you were going to say.
Well, James beat me to it, actually, Randy. I was just going to say how, from our side, how things have evolved. 5 years ago, it was price. Now, most people are interested in the quality. Still some people only interested in the price, but most people want the quality first, and then the best price they can get for that quality.
I'll introduce another dynamic too. Which is that low cost in reality, because it's so close to 0, the cost of a bad call can actually be a negative cost. In other words, one bad call to one customer. Yeah. Can be worth less than 0, can cost money. So yeah, so it's and of course the closer the routes go to the cost being 0, the higher the probability that that your company showing up with a bad face, as a potential way to have saved some money is going to be a negative net value equation for your organization. So,
I'm
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that not only is that very, very true, but I'll try to be as quick as I can because I tend to go on and on. But there's a story of a couple of years ago. I recommended our ISP, our VoIP, ITSP, to someone, and we went through a whole long dialogue of what are we going to do, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, these people are really good, and they're right in the same city. And I told them, go talk to this guy, and I sent the salesman out there. I wasn't expecting any kind of commission or anything, but I just wanted to connect these two people together. And they went through the whole process. And at the end, I said, well, what did you guys end up doing? And she said, well, we had a VoIP thing before, and the quality really sucked, so we went with France Telecom, or Orange, or whatever. And first of all, they were not better served, I'm sure. But the main thing is that because the original setup that they had, and whatever that was, it wasn't, certainly may not have been equivalent to what my guy was proposing, by the way. In those days, the best thing you could get would be SDSL 128, by the way, which was horribly expensive, but it was very, very reliable, and they had the service agreement, whatever that was called, where the thing had to be up all the time, and it was synchronous. Anyway, you're right, Carl, 100%. That screwed the whole deal for those people, where they could have perfectly well provided a really good VoIP service, and ironically today, here in this country, everything is SIP. Every provider, even Orange, they fight with you. If you ask them for a copper pair for analog line, they don't want to give it to you. I mean, you have to really discuss for a long time with someone who doesn't know the difference. They are not into it. Anyway, Eugene, you look like you're ready to react to some of these things.
Yeah, I wanted to comment one thing. Right, rate is not often the first criteria of selecting a partner to work with or not, but we say a transparent rate is very often a kind of excuse in order to start communication, because based on rate comparison, it can be either positive or negative effect when you are building a business case. But very often you may start at one destination and go on with some other, and sooner or later you understand whether that partner itself is worth working with or not in general, because what we try to increase is quite idealistic idea. It has two parts. First, we want to take all the rates on this planet and targets and make them transparent, so there is no longer hidden picture of that business. It's about uniting good guys with good guys, because there are a lot of non-qualified managers, and people are wasting time of talking to someone who does not understand what the business is. And we've got about 1,500 registrations, and right now we're serving only 250 carriers because we deleted a lot of accounts, empty accounts, people who just don't want to do anything, just won't waste someone's time. And our, I would say, a good plus that we're uniting people who are just open to communicate, are ready to make it quick, fast, in a good professional way.
Okay, I'm going to ask everybody in IRC if you're there and if you're listening. Why are you in IRC if you're not listening, by the way? That you get a life, okay? But other than that, if you have a life and you're listening to this live, type in your questions, please, or your comments or whatever. And I'm going to go to the final segment here, which basically is going to ask you, Eugene, some kind of a call for action. How do people get in touch with you? Who would you like to talk to? Do you want a whole bunch of people to get on and use guest accounts to test your system? I'm going to guess that, by the way, of course I did that, but I'm going to guess that there's no real point in doing that unless they're interested. I would say this, though, and I see your question, Simon. I would say this, though, that everyone should probably just take a look, just to see what they do at transparate.com, especially if you're listening to this after and you can't ask questions, just to see what it is and see if it's of interest to you. And if you understand it, contact them or get the guest account happening, the trial, whatever it's called. Eugene, how do people contact you? What's the preferred way? And what are you folks looking for as far as feedback from our audience and from anyone at all who picks this broadcast up?
Well, Transparate.com as a homepage itself is extremely minimalistic. A few days ago, someone wrote me that the most uninviting and disgusting marketing attempt he ever seen. That's because we have only two options. You can watch video about the service itself and either get registered or log in. And there is no other options, no polished presentations, no fake stories about how great we are, etc., etc. We try to keep it quite direct, and when people join, we contact them personally by calling to them or meeting them at Skype in order to understand their needs and assist them to get started. So we're not leaving people just by themselves, because sometimes the interface might be confusing and they've got more questions to ask, so we're always open to talk to them. Actually,
I would disagree with that, by the way, in that there would be no point, in my opinion, in putting a big blah blah on the page. I get what the person was saying. You have a video or you just go right to the exchange. But I don't see, every VoIP site suffers from the same crap that they put up there about their blah, the services, and no one understands any of it, really. So you're going to have to talk to a salesperson, even just SIP trunking. All of those sites are pretty much the same. They all say the same thing, and there's no good way to know what it's really about. So I don't quite agree. I don't think that you have to worry too much about that. I think that in the case of the audience that you're looking at, you're probably doing fine. If anybody wants to comment on that, having looked at their site, you're welcome to. Okay, I'm going to shut up and listen to the next person who started to talk. Who was who? Who was that was starting? Who did I cut off? They got disgusted. Carl? Carl?
I've got a question. If there's a gap, Randy.
Yeah.
Eugene, we haven't talked money. How much does it cost? How do you guys get paid? If you're obviously not seeing the deal that happens after people have met, so I'm interested how you're getting paid by the deal.
Business model. We keep it, it's a subscription-based service, so we are not in your deals, so we don't charge you for each deal you find on Transparate. The price for account is 500 USD per year, and that's it. So for that amount of money, you have access to the service for the 12 months, and we keep it available actually for each carrier, because our idea is to unite as many carriers as possible, so they don't say it's too expensive for us. If you are in VoIP business, 500 per year to get new leads on daily basis, it's not a big money.
Clear enough.
Okay, thank you.
Clear enough. I'm really sorry. I think was that you that I interrupted, Simon, or was that somebody else?
No, it wasn't me, Randy.
Okay, who started? I'm really sorry. I just wanted to get that point out, and as usual.
That's an interesting pricing model. It kind of comes back to the question that came up earlier about size. How big do you have to be? And I think it would be interesting, if you look at the way most dating services work, especially in the professional world of dating a new employee, so to speak. Basically it's always a percentage of the value of the economic value of the employee. So a small player in that $500 a year model would be so to the question of how big do you have to be, and the answer is you have to be quite big, unless there's a different kind of a pricing structure. Otherwise, that would obviously, there would never be an economic incentive for a small player to sell the long tail of their capacity.
Was there a question in there?
Yeah, just so my question would be, what, have you guys ever considered other pricing models or is there just not very much interest in the small player market, or that, obviously that, one size doesn't always fit all, and a lot of businesses are structured to kind of capture people based on their ability to pay, especially if you have no variable cost, like it appears to be in this case. Okay.
Well, we had two options: either to step into your margin between seller and buyer, and traders, they actually hate it because exchanges keep doing that, and it does not attract people. At the same time, people keep asking us, make it on monthly basis, and we say no, we will make it on year basis because we would like to have a longer relationship with you, not just to take more money from you. So during a year, we justify that amount of money within 2 or 3 months if you work closely with a carrier. So value for money is good according to our members.
Eugene, Simon again. You mentioned that you cut 1,500 members off because they didn't do anything. Is there a requirement to trade? And I'll tell you why. Because something you said earlier is quite interesting, in that you can monitor routes and monitor destinations and get alerts and effectively see where the market is going, even if you're not necessarily using the platform to participate in a particular market. Have I understood correctly, or is there a requirement to actually trade to maintain membership?
Well, we don't like watchers. Probably it's our problem, because there are many people who would like to watch and not to do nothing. And I can understand that. But by just watching, people are not involved in the communication with our members. And the site itself is built as a tool to be interactive. So anytime I add a destination, I get immediately comparison results to see people to talk to. Why should I watch longer? I mean, there is a way to start talking immediately. And, well, you can watch to analyze it in advance, but sooner or later you've got to talk to people. So that's why we did it. And we make sure that you've got a long selection of people to talk to, so you're not limited with 1 or 2 people to talk to. So.
Okay, interesting. I might disagree with you and answer the question, why would you watch? If I take our company as an example, and very similar to James, we probably wouldn't purchase on your product because there's no quality measurement, and we generally favour long-term relationships with people that we know and trust, rather than buying and selling routes on a very quick turnaround. But from a sales and commercial point of view, it's sometimes interesting and useful to see what everybody else is doing, and that area of the marketplace, what a route to a certain destination may be going for. That has value to me.
That's a great point too, by the way, Simon.
Okay. Well, again, it's allowed to watch. We just don't happy with it. So, and for watchers, we've got another instrument. For example, you can. Okay, there is a carrier who is out of Transparate, but I would like to see rate comparison if I do have any positive, negative match. You can create your virtual carrier, upload its rates and targets, and download data to analyze. Well, that's a pure watching for me, so you can be happy with it.
Okay, I guess we've been about an hour. We'll probably go ahead and cut this off unless anyone has any last.
One more question.
Oh, yeah, and I don't have my recording.
Of course.
Carl
Bingo.
Fife has one last question. Carl?
So, do buyers and sellers do just like providers and users of routes? I mean, are they charged the same amount? Because, for example, in a lot of other markets, those that are providing product or providing liquidity in the example of public trading markets, you basically get paid to fill up the store with product, and it's the people on the buying end that are the ones that are paying. So in a lot of markets, you are essentially free, or you get paid to provide liquidity or provide product, and then of course on the other end you have to pay to take product off the shelves, to take liquidity, or so are buyers and sellers of product, do they all kind of have the same $500 a year flat fee?
Yes, we keep it equal for both buyers and sellers. And I should say that today there are more sellers than buyers on Transparate. And when we've got a buyer as a newcomer, we say, okay, you're a lucky guy because there are a lot of sellers waiting for you. And so.
Interesting. So you have kind of the opposite problem. You'd be like the one example of the market that pays buyers to come and shop in the store.
Right. Well, because buyers are interested in the same way as sellers in our case, and we treat them equally in order to, well, because they have the same amount of interest.
It's an interesting point. It's not like girls' night at the bar. Ladies' night is what they say. Okay. Anyway, unless someone starts typing right now in IRC or comes out with a question through ZipDX as soon as I leave a pause, which is right about now. 3, 2, 1. Okay. It's the only thing left is to thank Eugene and everybody who's participated. We will continue on ZipDX, but it's probably 1 hour is probably enough for a video. Thank you, Eugene. This has been very interesting. I'm sorry I wasn't a little bit more into the topic, but I brought the muscles. So we had Simon from simwood.com and James Bodie, who dropped out because his laptop battery. Oh, you tech guys. Laptop battery died, but he's still in IRC and still on the line, apparently, on ZipDX. And that's all she wrote, except to come to VUC.me. Those of you who are looking at this on YouTube and have no idea what's going on. Usually we're a little more organized. We've had some problems tonight. But again, Eugene, thank you. Transparate.com for anyone who's interested in your services. And we hope to hear from you again soon.
Randy, thank you for inviting, and everyone who participates in the events. Have a good day. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.